I never thought one unexpected night could change everything. From fear to passion, from secrets to a love I couldn't resist. My world turned upside down the moment he touched my hand. But what happens when desire collides with danger? And when the man who swore to protect me becomes the one I can't live without? Subscribe, hit like, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to know. When the door closed behind him, the silence hit me harder than I expected. The penthouse, with its towering windows and breathtaking view, suddenly felt too big, too hollow, like all the warmth had gone with him. I wrapped my arms around myself and sank onto the couch, trying to breathe past the tightness in my chest. Ethan's scent still lingered in the air, cedar and rain, clean and masculine. It clung to the fabric, to my hair, to the memory of his hands on me. My body was still humming from the night before, but underneath that glow lived a gnawing fear I couldn't shake. He'd kissed me like it was both a promise and a goodbye, and now every corner of this place whispered his absence. I walked to the window, pressing my palm against the glass. Far below, the city buzzed on, unaware that somewhere out there, Ethan was stepping into danger. My mind replayed the way he'd strapped on his gear, the shadow in his eyes when he told me he was leaving with me in his heart. It was romantic, yes, but it was also terrifying, because what if that was all I ever got? A single night, a memory sweet enough to ruin me, followed by silence that stretched forever. I shook my head, fighting the thought. He wasn't just a man of money or mystery. He was a protector, a fighter, and if anyone could come back to me, it was Ethan. Still, the vulnerability burned. I paced, restless, every sound from the hallway making me flinch. I thought of my sister, safe with her father for now, and wondered what kind of woman I had to be to hold both worlds together. Responsibility and this dangerous, intoxicating love. Hours passed in fragments. Sometimes I found myself smiling, touching my lips as if I could still feel his kiss. Other times I sank into the cushions, my chest aching, replaying worst-case scenarios. The night before had changed me. It wasn't just desire, it was surrender. And now surrender felt like the riskiest thing I'd ever done. At one point, I opened my phone and hovered over his number, fingers trembling. But what would I even say? Come back? He knew that already. Instead, I whispered to the empty room, "Please be safe, Ethan." My voice cracked, and I hated how fragile I sounded. I pulled one of his shirts from the back of a chair and slipped it over my body, the fabric swallowing me whole. Curling up in his bed, I closed my eyes, clutching the pillow that smelled of him. Sleep came slowly, broken by fear and longing, but finally it wrapped around me. And just before I drifted completely, I thought I heard his voice. Low, steady, promising. "I'll come back for you, Mia." Whether it was real or just my desperate imagination, I held onto it like a lifeline. When I woke, the morning light had already shifted across the glass walls, painting the room in gold. For a second, I reached beside me, expecting warmth, expecting him. But the sheets were cool, empty. Reality set in all over again. Ethan was gone, and I had no idea when or if he would return. I sat up slowly, one of his shirts still draped over me from the night before, and the ache in my chest deepened. I padded barefoot into the kitchen, searching for something to fill the silence. The penthouse was beautiful, yes, but too perfect, too impersonal. Without him, it felt like I was trespassing in a world that wasn't mine. I poured coffee into a mug and stood at the counter, staring out at the city below. Somewhere out there, Ethan was risking everything. The thought sent a shiver racing down my spine. Not just fear, but an odd thrill. He wasn't just a man. He was a storm wrapped in charm and discipline, and somehow I'd found myself right in the center of it. I ran my fingers over my lips, remembering the night before. His touch had been careful but consuming, as if he was memorizing every part of me. And now, every nerve in my body still hummed with that memory. It scared me, how much I already missed him, how much of myself I had given away in such little time. To distract myself, I wandered the apartment, discovering fragments of him, an open book on the nightstand, a cufflink left near the sink, a faint trace of his cologne by the closet. Each detail pulled me deeper into his world, a world I didn't fully understand but already craved. My phone buzzed, snapping me back. A message from my sister's father. "She's fine. Don't worry." Relief washed over me, but guilt followed right after. I was here, wrapped up in desire and fear for a man I barely knew, while my little sister trusted me to be her anchor. I closed my eyes, clutching the phone too. My chest. Could I be both? The protector my sister needed, and the woman who was falling dangerously, irreversibly, for Ethan? The thought hung heavy until I caught sight of the window again. The city stretched wide, alive, and for the first time I realized I wasn't just waiting. I was part of something bigger now, something dangerous, something intoxicating. I whispered his name, barely a breath, Ethan, and in that moment, my heart betrayed me, because I knew I wasn't just hoping he'd come. I was already imagining what our next night together would feel like. The sound of the lock turning jolted me upright. For a heartbeat, I thought I was dreaming again, but then the door opened, and Ethan stepped inside. My breath caught. He was here. He was alive. Relief hit me so hard my knees weakened, and tears blurred my vision. But the joy tangled instantly with shock. His shirt was torn, streaked with dirt and blood, his jaw shadowed by bruises, a cut trailing down his temple. He looked both devastatingly beautiful and heartbreakingly battered. Ethan! My voice cracked as I rushed toward him. He tried to smile, but it faltered, replaced by a grimace. I told you I'd come back. I threw my arms around him carefully, terrified of hurting him, but needing to feel his solidity under my hands. The warmth of his body, even through pain, undid me. Tears spilled freely as I pressed my face against his chest. You're hurt. I thought... My voice broke. I thought I lost you. His hand came up, trembling but strong, cradling the back of my head. You almost did, he admitted, voice low. We got the man we needed. He's behind bars, but his men, they caught me. I barely slipped out. I pulled back to look at him, my fingers tracing gently over the bruise on his cheek. He winced, but his eyes never left mine. Those hazel depths holding a storm of exhaustion, pain, and something else. Relief. You were waiting, he whispered, almost in disbelief. You stayed. Did. Of course my words came out fierce, even through tears. You said you'd come back and I believed you. My throat tightened. I needed you to. His lips curved, softer this time, as if my words stitched something inside him. He leaned closer, his forehead pressing against mine. I didn't realize how much I needed this. Needed you. Until now. I kissed him then, careful at first, but he met me with a hunger that went deeper than desire. It was survival, gratitude, love clawing its way into His hands gripped me, shaky but sure, pulling me closer despite the pain. When we broke apart, I cupped his face, forcing him to see me through the haze of everything he'd endured. You're safe now, I whispered. You're here. That's all that matters. But even as I said it, a shadow crossed his eyes. Something unspoken lingered, something that told me this wasn't over. And for the first time, I wondered, what would we have to sacrifice to keep this fragile, dangerous love alive? Sit, said softly, guiding him toward the couch. He didn't argue, but the way his body sagged into the cushions made my stomach twist. The bruises were darker in the light, the cuts deeper than I wanted to admit. I hurried to the bathroom and returned with a bowl of warm water, a clean cloth, and the first aid kit I'd spotted earlier in a drawer. Setting everything down, I knelt in front of him. Let me help. Ethan's lips curved faintly, though his eyes burned with pain. You don't have to. I want to. My tone was firmer than I expected, and his gaze softened, surrendering. I dipped the cloth into the water, wrung it out, and pressed it gently to the scrape along his jaw. His breath hitched, not from the sting, I suspected, but from the closeness. My face hovered inches from his, every detail of him magnified, the sharp line of his cheekbone, the tension in his jaw, the steady pull of his hazel eyes. You shouldn't have been alone out there, I whispered. I wasn't, he said, voice low, steady. I carried you with me the whole time. My hand trembled, and I pressed harder than I meant to. He winced, and I jerked back. Sorry. His fingers curled around my wrist, grounding me. Don't be. You're the reason I fought to get out. I swallowed, focusing on cleaning the bruise on his ribs, carefully unbuttoning his shirt. The sight of his body, powerful, sculpted, now marred by bruises, stole my breath. My hands brushed his skin, and heat spread up my arms, shame and desire colliding. He noticed. His smirk was faint but unmistakable. "You're blushing," he murmured. "And you're impossible," I shot back, though my voice betrayed me, too soft, too shaky. The moment hung between us, charged, until I spoke again, quieter. "Is it over? Are we safe?" His eyes darkened. "No, the man's behind bars, but his network isn't. The men who grabbed me," he shook his head, "they'll want payback, and they'll look for weaknesses. Me." The word escaped before I could stop it. His jaw tightened, his hand sliding to the back of my neck. "No, they'll never touch you. Not while I'm breathing." The vow sent a shiver down my spine. Fear and longing tangled into something dangerously addictive. I finished bandaging him, my hands lingering longer than necessary. When I looked up, his face was close, too close. The intensity in his eyes made my pulse race. For a heartbeat, I thought he might kiss me again, bruises and all. Instead, he whispered, "You don't know what you've gotten yourself into." With me, Mia. My chest ached with the truth in his words, but I didn't flinch. Maybe I do. The air between us tightened, heavy with unspoken promises, and the sound of his phone vibrating on the table shattered it, dragging us both back to the danger waiting outside. The vibration of his phone cut through the silence like a blade. Ethan glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening, then swiped to answer. His tone shifted instantly, firm, clipped, the voice of a man still half in the line of duty. I busied myself collecting the bandages, pretending not to listen, but every word he spoke made my stomach tighten. When he finally ended the call, he let the device drop onto the table with a tired sigh. "Good news," he said, leaning back, though the shadows under his eyes told me the fight wasn't over. "The operation is closed for now. Officially, I'm off active duty for a few months. Time to heal, to recalibrate." Relief washed through me, loosening something I hadn't even realized I was gripping so tightly. "So you're safe?" My voice sounded small, almost childish. He gave me a slow nod. "Safer than I've been in years. But that doesn't mean the world suddenly turned soft. There are still people out there looking for cracks, weak spots. My job, even now, is to make sure no one slips through." His eyes caught mine then, steady and deliberate, like he'd been building toward this moment. "That includes you, Mia. You and your sister." My breath caught. "Us?" He leaned forward, ignoring the ache in his body, and took my hand in his. His touch was warm, rough from the fight, but certain. "I want you both here, with me. This place is secure, safer than anything you've had until now. You wouldn't have to look over your shoulder, wondering what might happen next." I tried to swallow past the lump in my throat. The thought of bringing my sister here, into this world that was so far from ours, was overwhelming. But the way Ethan said it wasn't a suggestion. It was a vow. "And you?" I whispered. "What about us?" A flicker of something deeper sparked in his eyes. Desire, longing, maybe even fear. "With you, Mia." His voice dropped lower, softer. "It might be more than protection, if you'll let it." Heat surged through me at his words, spreading to every corner of my body. I looked away, afraid he could read too much in my eyes, but he reached for my chin, tilting it back toward him. His thumb brushed my skin, tender, claiming nothing but offering everything. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to surrender to the safety and the danger of it all, but my thoughts raced with questions. My sister, my life, the weight of stepping into his world. The quiet in the penthouse felt different now. Not empty, not hollow. It was thick with something unspoken, a tenderness that hovered in the air between us. Ethan hadn't said more after inviting me and my sister to stay with him, but the way he looked at me told me he meant every word. I traced the rim of my coffee cup, searching for the right response, but his hand found mine before I could speak. His palm was rough, his grip warm and steady. "You don't have to decide right now," he said gently, his hazel eyes softening. "I just want you to know this isn't temporary for me. Not the protection, not you." The weight of those last words sank into me, spreading heat through my chest. I lifted my gaze to him, struck again by how breathtaking he was, even with bruises marking his skin. They only made him seem more human, more real, an untouchable man who'd chosen to let me see him broken. I nodded, finally whispering, "It feels different here, safer, like I can breathe." Something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe, or something deeper. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Then stay. Let me take care of you both. No running, no hiding. Just us, figuring this out. The vulnerability in his tone unraveled me. I shifted closer on the couch, brushing my shoulder against his. His body was heat and strength, beside mine. The kind of presence that made me feel both protected and awakened. You mean it? I asked softly. Ethan tilted his head, a faint smile pulling at his bruised lips. Every word. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It pulsed with possibility. I reached for the first aid kit again, pretending to fuss with the bandages, but really I just wanted an excuse to touch him. My fingers skimmed his arm as I adjusted the wrapping on his ribs, lingering longer than necessary. His breath caught, and when I glanced up, his eyes were locked on mine, intense, unreadable, but filled with a hunger that sent a shiver racing down my spine. I'm not fragile, Mia, he murmured. You don't have to treat me like I'll break. My lips curved despite the heat in my cheeks. Maybe I want to. The air between us thickened, charged. I leaned in, close enough to feel the warmth of his breath, but not yet closing the space. His hand rose to the back of my neck, guiding me, steady and certain. When our lips finally met, the kiss was slower this time. Not rushed, not desperate. It was patient, deep, a promise of everything that could grow between us if we let it. My body pressed to his carefully, aware of his injuries, but craving more all the same. When we broke apart, his forehead rested against mine, his voice low and certain. You and your sister belong here, Mia. And if you'll let me, so do I, with you. The words left me trembling, caught between fear and hope. My heart racing. An answer I wasn't ready to speak aloud. The call with my sister's father came late in the afternoon. I stepped onto the balcony for privacy, the city stretching wide beneath me. My voice was tight when I told him about Ethan's offer, about the chance to live somewhere safe, without the constant weight of uncertainty pressing down. There was silence on the other end before he finally spoke. Mia, I won't keep her from you. She's your sister, and you've been everything to her. But she's my daughter too. I don't want to lose my place in her life. I'd never take that away, I said quickly, clutching the phone tighter. She needs you. I need her safe. His sigh carried both worry and understanding. Then let's make it safe for all of us. I can arrange for 2 officers to watch the house around the clock. She'll be protected, and you. His voice softened. Maybe you can finally breathe a little. Live a life for yourself, Mia. You've earned that much. Tears stung my eyes. Unexpected. The permission in his words felt like a weight sliding off my shoulders. Thank you, I whispered. When I hung up, Ethan was waiting inside, his expression unreadable, but his gaze steady. I told him everything, and the way his jaw relaxed, the way his eyes warmed, made my heart ache. For the first time in a long time, I felt like the ground beneath me wasn't shifting. Later that evening, I heard the shower running. Steam drifted from the bathroom door left slightly ajar. I hesitated, pulse racing, before my hand pushed it open. Ethan stood beneath the cascade, his head tilted back, water gliding down the lines of his bruised body. Vulnerable, strong, beautiful. Something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the way his shoulders tensed when he realized I was there, or the way his eyes darkened when they met mine. Maybe it was the memory of every promise whispered between us. Without another thought, I slipped inside, closing the door behind me. Steam wrapped around us as I stepped beneath the spray, my breath catching when Ethan's eyes met mine. His body was a map of bruises, dark marks across his ribs, cuts along his shoulders. He tried to shift away, as if to shield me from seeing, but I closed the space, my hand lifting to his chest. You don't have to hide from me, I whispered, fingertips gliding gently over the firm muscle beneath battered skin. He flinched at the touch, not from pain, but from the weight of letting me close. I reached for the soap, lathering it slowly between my palms before pressing it to his skin. My hands moved in soft circles across his shoulders, down his arms, over the lines of his back. Each stroke was tender but deliberate, as if I could wash away the battle he had fought. The scent of cedar and water filled the space, intoxicating. Ethan's jaw clenched, his eyes half closing as my fingers traced lower, carefully over every bruise, every scar. My body pressed to his, water cascading over both of us, and something deeper than care began to stir between us. Mia, he rasped, voice thick, warning and wanting all at once. But I didn't pull back. I leaned in, lips brushing his shoulder, tasting the mix of salt and steam. My hand slid around his waist, holding him with a need that was no longer just about protection. It was desire, raw and undeniable. His restraint cracked. He turned, pinning me gently against the tiles, his mouth claiming mine with hunger. The kiss was fierce, yet careful, my face as though I was something precious. My fingers tangled in his wet hair, pulling him closer, demanding more. Water ran down our entwined bodies as his lips left mine to explore my neck, the hollow of my collarbone, each kiss sending fire through my veins. I gasped his name, and in that moment, there was no danger, no past, only the urgency of us. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested on mine, breath ragged. Without a word, he reached for the towel, wrapping it around my body, before lifting me effortlessly into his arms. He carried me from the bathroom to the bed, laying me down with a reverence that made my heart pound harder than any rush of fear. He leaned over me, eyes searching mine one last time, as if asking silently if I was sure. I answered with a kiss that left no doubt. The night that followed was one of unguarded surrender. Touches became confessions, kisses turned into promises, and every movement was charged with both tenderness and fire. It wasn't just passion, it was trust, and it left me trembling in the safety of his arms. When sleep finally threatened to take me, Ethan brushed a strand of hair from my face, his expression softer than I had ever seen. "You have no idea," he whispered, "how much I needed this, how much I needed you." And before I could answer, exhaustion claimed us both, tangled together in the warmth of what felt dangerously close to love. The room was hushed, except for the rhythm of rain against the window. Ethan's body, warm and solid, rested heavy against mine as the night stretched on. I traced lazy circles across his chest, careful not to press against the bruises, my touch a whisper over his skin. His breathing was uneven, restless, as if even in sleep he was still fighting battles I couldn't see. At times he shifted abruptly, muscles tightening, a soft groan breaking the silence. Each time I smoothed my hand along his jaw or brushed my lips against his shoulder, trying to ground him. The more I cared for him, the more I realized how much he carried, how much he tried to shield from me. Finally, near dawn, his breathing steadied under my touch. I kept watching him, wide awake, unwilling to let him fight alone, even in dreams. My heart ached with something deeper than attraction. It was a pull I couldn't explain, a need to be near him, no matter how complicated. When morning light crept through the curtains, Ethan stirred. His eyes opened slowly, blue and stormy, catching mine already fixed on him. For a moment, he simply studied me, his hand brushing a strand of hair from my face. Then his expression shifted, more serious. "Mia," he began, voice low, "we need to talk." My chest tightened. He sat up, running a hand through his damp hair, the weight of his words already clear in his eyes. "It's not ethical for me to be with you like this. Not officially," he said, his jaw tense. "I'm supposed to protect you. That's my job. But last night proved I can't stay detached. And I don't." His confession was raw, unpolished, filled with conflict. "If we keep pretending this is only about protection, we'll both get hurt. I want to take responsibility for you, for your safety, for your life. Not as an assignment, but as something I choose, as something more." The vulnerability in his words cracked through my hesitation. My throat tightened as I sat up, facing him. "Ethan," I whispered, "I've been trying to ignore it, telling myself I couldn't feel this way, but I am already too involved. Last night wasn't a mistake. It was the only thing that's felt right in a long time." His shoulders relaxed, the tension easing as he reached for my hand. I let him take it, our fingers intertwining naturally. His gaze softened, searching mine as though anchoring himself in my answer. "Then we don't run from it," he said quietly. "We figure it out, together." The promise hung between us, heavy and fragile, yet stronger than fear. My heart raced with relief and anticipation, knowing that what we had just admitted would change everything. Still holding my hand, Ethan leaned closer, his lips brushing mine in a kiss that was tender, unhurried, sealing our confession. But even in the warmth of that moment, I couldn't shake the thought that love with him would never be simple. The kitchen smelled like coffee and toast, but Ethan's eyes were fixed on me, not the food. I stood barefoot, his oversized shirt falling halfway down my thighs. Sleeves rolled past my elbows as I buttered bread like it was the most important task in the world. "You know," he said from the counter, voice husky with amusement, "if you keep wearing my clothes, I'll run out of shirts." I glanced back, smirking. "You own enough to dress a small army." He chuckled, shaking his head, but his gaze lingered longer than it should have. That look made me fumble the knife, nearly dropping it. His laughter deepened, warm and teasing, the kind of sound that made my chest tighten in the best way. "You're enjoying this too much," I muttered, turning back to the bread. "And you're too easy to fluster," he countered. I felt him behind me before I heard him move, his presence like static in the air. His hands slid gently to my hips, steadying me as he pressed closer. My breath caught. The toast was forgotten. "You smell like coffee and rain," he murmured, lips brushing the curve of my neck. Heat sparked where his mouth touched, and my grip on the counter tightened. His arms encircled me, firm, but careful, like even now he didn't want to push too far. I turned to face him, leaning back against the counter. His face was inches from mine, eyes smoldering, every line of him carved with both strength and tenderness. My fingers traced his jaw, lingering at the stubble, my heart thundering. "You shouldn't look at me like that this early in the morning," I whispered. "Why not?" he teased. "You're mine to look at." Before I could reply, his lips found mine, hungry, playful, then slowing something into deeper. His hands roamed up my sides, stealing my breath as I melted into him. I laughed softly against his mouth, and he smiled into the kiss, a sound so rare it made me dizzy. And then, without warning, he pulled back just enough to look into my eyes. "Mia," he said, voice low but certain, "be my girlfriend." I blinked, caught completely off guard. "You're asking me that while I'm holding a butter knife?" He grinned, shameless. "It's the most dangerous weapon you own." I figured I'd... Laughter spilled out of me, breaking the tension, but the sincerity in his eyes burned through. He wasn't joking, not really. My pulse raced as his thumb brushed my lip, waiting for my answer. My chest tightened with both nerves and joy. I realized then, I didn't want to hold back anymore. The words hung in the air between us, his question still echoing in my chest. I hadn't expected it so soon, but the answer came without hesitation. "Yes," I breathed, my lips curving into a smile I couldn't hide. "I'll be your girlfriend." Relief flashed across Ethan's face before he pulled me into his arms, kissing me deeply. The kiss was both celebration and promise, a surge of warmth that made my knees weak. For a moment, nothing else existed. When we finally broke apart, he brushed a strand of hair from my cheek. "Then there's something we should do," he said. "You need your things from your apartment. But after that, Mia, you're not staying there. Not after everything." I hesitated, then nodded. I wanted to believe it was paranoia, but part of me knew he was right. We drove through the city in silence, my hand resting in his, our connection speaking louder than words. But when we reached my building, the sight waiting for us froze my blood. My apartment door wasn't just unlocked, it was ajar. "Stay behind me," Ethan ordered, his voice sharp, protective. He pushed the door open, scanning the small space with a practiced eye. I stepped in after him, my stomach sinking. Everything was overturned, drawers yanked open, clothes scattered, my few valuables tossed across the floor. The sense of violation hit me like a punch, my throat tightening. "God," I whispered, hugging my arms to my chest. Ethan's jaw hardened. "This isn't random." He turned to me, eyes blazing. "You're not spending another night here, ever." "But where?" "With me," he cut in firmly. "Indefinitely. I'll keep you safe. That's not up for debate." The authority in his tone should have scared me, but instead it made me feel anchored, protected. I nodded slowly, letting the truth of his words settle. He crouched beside me, brushing his fingers over mine where I clutched a photo of my sister. "Grab what matters most. Clothes, essentials. The rest, we'll replace." My hands shook as I packed a small bag. When I straightened, Ethan was waiting by the door, holding it open like he was ready to shield me from the world outside. As we left the apartment behind, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't just moving out of a space. I was stepping into something bigger, scarier, but also something I desperately wanted. Him. Us. Once in the car, I expected him to drive straight to his penthouse. Instead, he gave me a sidelong glance, his lips quirking into a smile. "Before we go home, there's somewhere I want to take you." "Where?" I asked, wary but curious. "You'll see," he said, the teasing edge in his tone making my heart race. As the city lights blurred past, I realized he wasn't just protecting me. He was pulling me deeper into his world, one I wasn't sure I was ready for, but couldn't resist. The car hummed quietly as the city drifted by outside. My fingers were still tight around the strap of my small bag, the weight of the ransacked apartment lingering in my chest. Ethan's hand found mine, strong and grounding, and he gave it a reassuring squeeze. "Don't let that place haunt you," he said softly, eyes fixed on the road. "Whatever happened there, it was probably back when this all started. You're safe now. With me, you're safe." The certainty in his tone calmed me more than I wanted to admit. I looked at him, his profile sharp against the light, the kind of beauty that almost didn't feel real. But it wasn't just his looks that left me breathless. It was how he carried everything, the danger, the weight, and still made room for me. We pulled into the parking structure of an upscale shopping center, the kind of place I'd only ever passed by from the bus. My brows knit together. "Ethan, what are we doing here?" He parked, turned to me, and his lips curved into a half smile. "Something you should have had a long time ago. Peace of mind." I blinked. "I don't understand." He leaned closer, his voice steady. "I'm not just some agent playing dress-up, Mia. I have resources, more than enough. I don't want you worrying about rent or running out of clothes, or whether you can replace what was ruined. I want you to be able to live without fear or scarcity." The words struck me harder than I expected, my throat tightening. "Ethan, I can't just—" "Yes, you can," he interrupted gently, brushing his thumb along my knuckles. "This isn't charity. It's me saying I want to take care of you. You and your sister. Clothes, makeup, perfume, whatever you need. Tonight, you'll walk out of here with everything. You deserve it." The sincerity in his eyes left no room for argument. My protest dissolved, replaced with something warmer, something dangerous. The feeling of belonging. Inside the mall, the world seemed to pause around us. Lights glittered, storefronts sparkled with displays, but all I noticed was the way Ethan's hand stayed at the small of my back, guiding me gently, protectively. I tried on dresses I never thought I'd touch, laughed when he teased me about taking too long in the mirror, and flushed at the way his gaze lingered when I stepped out of the fitting room. Every moment felt surreal, like slipping into a life I didn't know I was allowed to dream about. By the time we left with bags in each hand, the weight on my shoulders felt lighter. And yet, as we walked toward the car, I couldn't help but wonder what exactly he meant when he said indefinitely. Ethan caught my expression and smirked, leaning down just enough to let his breath tickle my ear. "You'll see," he whispered, his tone rich with a promise that made my pulse race. Walking beside Ethan through the polished marble of the shopping center, I felt small, like I didn't belong. My bag swung lightly at my side, filled with clothes I never thought I'd own, but he walked with such ease, so unbothered by the weight of luxury, that it almost felt normal. I glanced up at him. "Ethan, this is too much. I can't let you spend like this for me." He slowed, turning to face me. The mall lights cast a soft glow over his sharp features, but his eyes were steady, unflinching. "Mia, there's something you need to know. I don't usually talk about this, but I need you to hear." My chest tightened. "What is it?" He exhaled, brushing a thumb across my cheek. "I'm a millionaire. Not because I chase money. It's just the life I built. The bureau pays well, but I also know where to put my earnings. I've invested smart. Real estate, stocks, things that multiply quietly in the background. Money isn't something I worry about, and I don't want you worrying either." The bluntness of his words stunned me. "You're a millionaire," I repeated softly, as if saying it out loud would make it real. He smiled faintly, almost self-deprecating. "It doesn't change who I am, but it means I can make sure you're cared for, that you never have to struggle the way you've had to. Clothes, food, a home, protection. It's all yours now." I swallowed hard. emotion rising in my throat. It wasn't about the money. It was the way he said it. Like my safety, my comfort, was non-negotiable. He tilted his head toward the storefront ahead, glass gleaming with lace and silk. "Go in," he said, his voice lower now, husky. "Pick lingerie, whatever makes you feel beautiful. Because I promise you, Mia, seeing you confident, comfortable in your own skin, that's all I want." Heat rushed to my cheeks. "Ethan, no arguments," he teased, though his gaze was serious. "Perfume, makeup, dresses, lingerie. Fill your arms if you want to. You deserve to feel every bit as stunning as you are." Inside the boutique, I ran my fingers over delicate fabrics, each touch sparking a mixture of nerves and anticipation. Ethan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes following me with an intensity that made my skin flush. He wasn't impatient. He was drinking in the sight of me, letting me know silently that whatever I chose, he already found me irresistible. When I held up a set of lace that made my heart skip, his lips curved into a slow, knowing smile. "That one," he murmured, voice deep enough to make me shiver. The weight of his gaze, the way he claimed me without touching, was almost too much. As the cashier packed the bag, Ethan stepped close enough that his breath brushed my ear. "You're mine now, Mia, and I want the world to see it." My pulse raced, and I realized the real question wasn't about lingerie, or money, or safety. It was about how far I was willing to let him into my heart. A month slipped by faster than I could count. The days settled into a rhythm that felt both surreal and natural, waking up in Ethan's arms, sharing coffee in his sunlit kitchen, laughing when my sister insisted he make pancakes on weekends. For the first time in years, life didn't feel like survival. It felt like living. That evening, Ethan insisted on planning everything himself. He told me only to wear something that made me feel beautiful. When I walked into the living room, dressed in a soft satin dress he'd chosen for me days earlier, I found candles glowing along the walls and a table set for 3. My sister was already there, eyes sparkling with excitement. "Surprise," Ethan said, stepping from the hallway with a small bundle in his arms. It wasn't flowers. It wasn't jewelry. It was a puppy, tiny, floppy-eared, with big brown eyes and a wagging tail that seemed too much for his little body. My sister gasped, running forward. "A dog! Oh my God, can I hold him?" Ethan crouched, handing the pup over, and laughter filled the room as the little thing licked her face until she squealed. I covered my mouth, tears stinging my eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming sweetness of it. "Ethan," I whispered, looking at him. He straightened, brushing his hands off with a smile. "He's ours. Yours." I thought, maybe it's time you had something that feels like family, something that waits at the door when you come home. My chest ached with gratitude. My sister was still giggling on the rug, the puppy pawing at her hair, and for the first time, I pictured us like a real family. Later, after dinner, when my sister drifted to sleep with the puppy curled against her side, Ethan and I sat by the window. The city lights glowed, and for once the silence wasn't heavy. It was warm. I leaned against him, tracing the outline of his hand. "I never told you much about my mom," I said softly. "She worked herself to the bone, trying to give me and Emily a better life. She never had help. I guess I learned early that I had to be both sister and mother to her." His arm tightened around me. "And you did it," he murmured. "You kept her safe. You've been On your
carrying
shoulders,
the
Mia."
world.
"I see that." I tilted my head, meeting his gaze. "What about you? You don't talk about your past much." For a moment, his expression flickered, something raw passing through his eyes. Then he sighed. "My parents split when I was young. My dad was gone more often than not. And my mom, she taught me discipline, structure, maybe too much of it. The bureau was the first place that felt like purpose, but it also made me forget what it means to have someone waiting at home." The vulnerability in his voice undid me. I reached up, cupping his jaw. "You have that now." His lips curved, but his eyes stayed on mine, heavy with meaning. "Do I?" he asked quietly, like he needed me to say it out loud. My heart pounded, knowing the next words would change everything. 6 months later, life felt like a dream I still hadn't fully woken up from. Ethan had made good on every promise: protection, stability, and more than anything, love that grew stronger with each passing day. My sister adored him. The puppy had become part of our little family, and I had begun to believe that maybe I deserved happiness after all. When he told me to pack a bag for something special, I didn't press him for details. That was Ethan, always a step ahead, always surprising me. The car ride was long, the scenery changing from city to countryside, until finally we arrived at a secluded villa overlooking a lake that shimmered under the setting sun. The air smelled of pine and wildflowers, and the quiet was broken only by birdsong. Inside, everything was perfection. Candles waiting to be lit, a fireplace crackling softly, champagne chilling in a silver bucket. Ethan had thought of everything, and my heart swelled as I realized what this meant. He was celebrating us. Over dinner, laughter spilled easily, his eyes never leaving mine. Later, he guided me outside to the terrace. The night sky stretched above, stars scattered like diamonds. He took my hands, his expression suddenly serious. "Mia," he began, voice husky, "these months with you have been the best of my life. I thought I knew what it meant to protect someone, but you've shown me what it means to love. You've given me purpose outside the bureau, outside the chaos. You've given me home." My throat tightened as tears blurred my vision. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a delicate ring glinting in the starlight. "This belonged to my mother," he said softly. "It's the most precious thing I have, and I want you to wear it, because I can't imagine a life without you in it. Mia, will you marry me?" Tears spilled freely as I covered my mouth, my heart thundering. I managed a nod before the words tumbled out, broken and breathless. "Yes, Ethan. Yes." He slid the ring onto my finger, his hands trembling slightly, and I threw my arms around him, sobbing against his shoulder. When our lips met, the kiss was desperate, full of relief, joy, and the promise of forever. When we finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine. "You've changed everything," he whispered, "and you've given me everything I didn't know I needed," I answered, my voice unsteady but sure. The night wrapped around us like a vow, and as he lifted me into his arms to carry me back inside, I knew nothing would ever be the same. The morning sun spilled golden light across the balcony as Ethan reached for my hand. "Ready for an adventure?" he asked, that mischievous glint in his eyes daring me to say no. We spent the day like two people rediscovering the world. First, a boat ride along the turquoise coast, waves shimmering like glass, the salty breeze whipping my hair while Ethan's arm anchored me close. He pointed out hidden caves, secret beaches, his voice blending with the rush of water. Later, we hiked a trail that opened to breathtaking cliffs, where the horizon seemed endless. I caught myself staring at him as much as the view. His strong frame, the way sunlight kissed his dark hair, the ease with which he laughed when I tripped over a stone and he caught me before I fell. By afternoon, we found a quiet cafe by the water. He ordered us fresh seafood and a bottle of white wine, insisting I taste everything. My cheeks hurt from smiling so much, my heart too full, like this was the kind of happiness I hadn't dared to imagine. When we finally returned to the villa, the sky painted itself in deep purples and pinks. Ethan uncorked a bottle of red wine and poured it into the 2 glasses, his eyes never leaving mine. We sat by the fire, laughter softening into silence, silence melting into something warmer. I leaned into him first, lips brushing his in a kiss that deepened with every heartbeat. The world outside the villa vanished. There was only his touch tracing my skin, his voice whispering my name, the undeniable pull between us. Our laughter turned into sighs, our sighs into promises unspoken, and by the time the fire had burned low, we were tangled together in a way that left no doubts about what we were to each other. The night stretched into dawn, filled with warmth, touches, and stolen breaths. It wasn't just passion, it was belonging. Ethan held me like I was both his anchor and his weakness, and I gave myself to him, without hesitation. Almost 2 months later, the memory of that night still lingered in every glance, every touch. Life with Ethan had begun to feel less like a dream, and more like the home I never knew I was searching for. But even as the days passed, I knew something bigger was coming, something that would test the very foundation we were building. I woke earlier than usual that morning, my body restless with a strange heaviness. For days, I had brushed aside the subtle changes, fatigue, waves of nausea, the way my emotions swelled at the smallest things. But deep down, a suspicion had begun to take root. one I could no longer ignore. With trembling fingers, I opened the small box I had hidden in the bathroom drawer. The test felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my hand. I followed the instructions, heart racing, and then waited. The longest minutes of my life. When the result appeared, my knees weakened. 2 lines. Clear. Undeniable. I sat on the edge of the tub, trying to breathe. Joy, fear, disbelief. Everything collided inside me. What would Ethan think? He was perfect. Yes. Protective. Loving. Impossibly strong. But he had never mentioned wanting a child. Would this change everything? Returned that evening, he found me curled on the sofa, staring blankly at the flickering light of a candle. He noticed instantly, "Mia, what's wrong?" His voice carried that mix of concern and gentleness that always unraveled me. I swallowed hard and showed him the test I had hidden behind my back. "Ethan, I think I'm pregnant." My voice cracked on the last word. For a heartbeat, silence. His expression unreadable, his eyes locked on mine. My stomach twisted, bracing for hesitation. Disappointment. Anything. But then Ethan's jaw trembled, his eyes glistening as he stepped closer. He knelt before me, taking my hands as if they were something sacred. "Pregnant?" he whispered, his voice breaking. "Mia, do you know what this means?" I bit my lip. "That everything changes. And I don't know if you..." Before I could finish, tears slipped down his cheeks. He pulled me into his chest, his hold fierce, almost desperate. "I wanted a life with you. I wanted forever with you. And now we're building more than that. You just gave me the greatest gift I could ever dream of." I froze, then melted against him, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his words. The fear I carried all day dissolved into warmth, a new kind of certainty. His lips found mine, tender but trembling, as though he was kissing both me and the future we hadn't dared imagine. When we finally pulled apart, his voice was raw, full of unshakable promise. "I'll take care of you, of both of you. Nothing will ever touch what we have." I believed him, but deep inside, I also knew that promises like his carried weight and danger. The following days carried a new rhythm, one that felt fragile and precious all at once. The reality of the pregnancy settled between us like a secret flame, warming, demanding, reshaping everything. Ethan suggested something that surprised me. "Let's live this experience first. The wedding can wait. I don't want us rushing just because the world expects it. I want to savor every second of this." His words made my chest tighten. It wasn't hesitation, it was devotion. He wanted to protect what we had, to let our future grow at the same pace as the life inside me. I couldn't keep it from my sister any longer. That evening, I took her aside, nervous and unsure. Her eyes widened as soon as the words left my lips. "I'm pregnant." For a second, she gasped, then squealed, throwing her arms around me. "Mia, that's amazing." She was growing so fast herself, no longer the little girl I once carried on my hip, but still full of childlike joy. Her excitement felt like a blessing I didn't know I needed. Ethan watched us from the doorway, his expression soft, almost reverent. Later, when we were alone, he whispered against my temple, "Seeing you with her, it makes me want to shield you both from the world even more." And shield he did. He took over everything. Appointments, meals, even making sure I didn't carry groceries or lift a finger more than necessary. Sometimes I laughed, teasing him that he was overprotective, but deep down, it made me feel cherished in a way I'd never known. Still, his desire for me didn't vanish. If anything, it burned brighter. One evening, after dinner, I caught his gaze lingering on me, his eyes dark with the same hunger I'd seen since the first night. He came closer, his hand sliding over my waist with deliberate slowness. "You're carrying my child, Mia," he murmured, voice low. "And somehow, you're even more beautiful now. Know how much I want you." The confession sent shivers down my spine. My body still responded to him, maybe even more now, but there was something deeper, a sense of belonging, of being claimed in every way. I leaned into him, lips brushing his in a kiss that tasted like both reassurance and desire. When we finally pulled away, breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. "Don't ever doubt it. I want all of you, always." That night, wrapped in his arms, I realized something new. Love just about passion or protection. It was about building a life, one choice at a time, and as sleep pulled me under, I knew we were only just beginning. The sterile white walls of the hospital seemed to close in around me as another contraction ripped through my body. My fingers clutched the sheets, knuckles pale, until Ethan's hand slipped into mine. His grip was steady, grounding me, like an anchor in the middle of the storm. "Breathe, Mia, with me," he murmured, his voice calm even as his eyes betrayed the worry he carried. His other hand brushed the damp hair from my forehead, his touch lingering as if reminding me I wasn't alone, not for a single heartbeat. I focused on him, on the rich green of his eyes, on the faint smile he gave me even when I knew he was terrified inside. With each push, with each wave of pain, his voice became my guide. He didn't flinch, didn't waver. He stayed, whispering encouragements, his thumb stroking circles over the back of my hand. "You're the strongest woman I've ever known," he said between clenched teeth, and the sincerity in his tone carried me through the worst of it. Hours blurred together, sweat and tears mixing with the rhythm of the monitors. And then, finally, the sharp cry of new life filled the room. My heart split wide open at the sound. The doctor laid the tiny bundle against my chest, and my arms closed instinctively around our child. I looked up at Ethan, and for the first time, I saw tears spill freely down his face. He leaned closer, pressing a trembling kiss to my temple, then to the baby's head. "You did it. You both did. God, Mia, I love you." The words cracked something inside me, but in the most beautiful way. My own tears slipped silently as I whispered back, "I love you, Ethan, more than I ever thought possible." He stayed glued to my side as the room cleared, his body curved protectively around mine and our newborn. He looked different now, still powerful, still breathtakingly handsome, but softened in a way only love and fatherhood could bring. I traced the line of his jaw with my fingertip, memorizing every detail, every emotion flickering across his face. "You'll never be alone again," he vowed, his voice low, raw with emotion. "Not you, not our child. I'll protect you both with everything I am." My heart swelled so full, it felt like it might burst. I believed him, completely. As the baby stirred softly against me, Ethan kissed me once more, slower this time, a kiss that carried relief and a promise of forever. His hand rested over mine on our child, binding us together in a way no words ever could. And in that moment, aching, exhausted, blissful, I knew I didn't just love him. I belonged to him, entirely. The church glowed in soft golden light, its stained glass windows catching the late afternoon sun. Rows of friends, family, and even those who had once stood on the sidelines of our story now filled the pews. Their faces turned toward me as the music began. My breath trembled, but not from nerves, only from the overwhelming weight of joy pressing against my heart. At the end of the aisle stood Ethan, impossibly handsome in his tailored suit, his eyes locked only on me. Even across the distance, I could feel the heat of his gaze, the unspoken promise we had carried through storms, fear, and love. But before I could move, the crowd let out a collective murmur. Down the aisle toddled our son, barely steady on his little legs, clutching the satin pillow with the rings tied carefully on top. His cheeks were rosy, his eyes wide with excitement, and when he spotted Ethan, he let out a squeal of delight that made everyone laugh softly through their tears. Ethan bent to scoop him up, kissing the top of his dark curls before guiding him gently toward me. My heart nearly broke from the tenderness of it all. Step by step, I walked forward, each pace bringing me closer to the man who had become my home. When I finally reached him, Ethan took my hand in his thumb, brushing over my knuckles like it always did when he wanted me to feel his calm. The vows came easily, not rehearsed but lived. He promised to love me fiercely, to protect not just me, but the family we had built. I promised to stand by him, to keep choosing him every day, even in the ordinary moments. When his voice broke saying, "Mia, you are my forever," the tears finally spilled down my cheeks. The rings slid onto our fingers, our son clapping as if he understood the magnitude of the moment. And when the officiant finally said the words we had both longed for, Ethan didn't wait. He pulled me into his arms and kissed me. It was tender, reverent, but laced with the same passion that had bound us from the very first night. The room blurred away until there was only us, complete, whole, and unshakably certain. Applause rose around us, but all I heard was his whispered, "I love you, wife." I smiled against his lips, whispering back, "And I'll love you always." Together, with our son, between us and the rest of our lives ahead, we walked down the aisle, hand in hand, hearts full, souls entwined. How would you rate this story from 1 to 10? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.